Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, thank you for providing an overview of what our audience can glean from the research base. And I see a lot of really good comments in the chat box, so keep those going. I know something else that we would like you to, as we're start this conversation with our districts, what we want you to do is think about of those areas that Rachel was going over. Are there some of these that really resonated with you, or are there some of these areas that in this transition to distance learning that your district is struggling with at this point? So keep those going. We're going to come back to the chat at the end so we can look at those questions. So we appreciate the interactivity. So when we were building this webinar, we knew that it was really important to hear from leaders and practitioners in the field that are really in the midst of this transition to remote learning for English learners. And so that's why we really want to thank each of our presenters today. And we know that you all want to hear from your peers and how do we adapt in this environment, the instruction for English learners. And so that's why it's really good for you all to hear from some of your peers. And I wanted to give a little bit of context about each of our panelists before we begin. So, Jennifer Betzworth, in her role, she oversees the compliance assessment services and instructional supports for English learners in the district. She also considers it her privilege to serve as an instructional coach and provide ongoing professional development for teachers, assistants, and administrators. And in the past 2 years as an instructional coach, she's implemented a number of changes to the EL program, which have positively affected English learners and teachers in her district. And prior to this, she was an elementary classroom teacher for 10 years, an EL teacher for 6 years. So thank you, Jennifer. We also have Jean Brassfeld, and in her role, she oversees all federal programs, accountability and testing, counselors and media specialists for the district. She also works directly with the Oklahoma State Department of Education, and where she's a longtime committee member of their Teaching and Learning Committee. And in the past few years in particular, her department has made substantial educational changes to both the English Learner and Title I programs. Lastly, we also have Ruben Diaz, and originally he comes from a small town in New Mexico, Roswell, which if you know anything about it, they have a great alien museum there. But he says he grew up under a typical small town life, and his parents were Mexican immigrants, and he's a first generation Chicano, and the most important thing that he was taught was that there was power in education. So after attending college away from home, he has been teaching in the Las Cruces area, first starting off as a dual language middle school teacher, and then he also served as an instructional coach. He also served as an assistant principal and currently works he's returned to Las Cruces from being in El Paso and serving as a secondary EL content specialist. So we appreciate all of these perspectives. So we can move to the next slide because we really want to hear from our panelists. So first I'd like to start off asking you, Ruben, a few questions. And as this is a conversation, Jean or Jennifer, feel free to jump in when you have something to add. Okay, so Ruben, can you tell us what are some of the primary strategies that your teachers are using to provide remote instructions to English learners at this time?
Yes, thank you. Well, first and foremost, I think the biggest thing we realized right away is that our department, our bilingual department, in conjunction with all the other departments within our district, knew that we had to provide an abundance of resources that would help target all the different levels that students would need to be catered to. And specifically for us, thinking about English language development as a spectrum, especially this late in the year, we still have quite a broad range of needs that our students are needing to be met. So first and foremost, we went out of our way to really provide resources to target all levels from our newcomers to the United States, first time in American schools, all the way up to our nearly English language proficient students. So we tried to offer from a lot of research proven resources, all of this to the teachers, new resources, familiar resources, just so that way they knew they would have options for all of their students. And from there, it really became more about the teachers in conjunction with their principals, with their support staff, with myself, and our bilingual departments, deciding what would be the best route for for individual needs, because every school within our district, they have similar but also different demographics, and therefore the access to some of these resources would need to vary. So, when it comes down to it, teachers have been making decisions versus, when it comes to small group versus whole group instruction, they've been using small group video conferencing to make sure they target certain groups, certain students with different needs, more so than others when it's necessary. At the same time, it was mentioned earlier, the use of synchronous and asynchronous video tools have been really informative and really important for our students, because some just don't have access at particular times to be in front of their teacher and within the group of kids, but they can access videos and other resources on their own time too. And I think just as a final point, one familiar thing that has come down to is just one-on-one support has been there as well, which is exactly what you would find in the classrooms, happening at our schools. Teachers have gone out of their way to target those students who really need that individualized support. So oftentimes it's even been just individual encouragement, because it's so hard for our kids to feel connected right now unless they're given those personal touches. So I would say, yeah, those have been the primary kind of strategies and approaches that we've been emphasizing.
Thank you, Ruben. So I'm hearing, for one, every school is a little bit different, so making sure that, a customized approach is taken. I'm also hearing the combination of both asynchronous and synchronous learning resources is another important one. Is there anything that you're hearing just broadly about anything teachers have tried that maybe was not helpful?
Yeah, I think in a general sense, what definitely proved to be not helpful was trying to have a one-size-fit-all approach, if you will. So, for example, at first, the idea was to have one platform that all of our schools could use, and that would be like a Google Classroom or Zoom or things like that. And then eventually we realized that different platforms had more to offer than other ones. There was just the idea of choice was really important for not just our teachers, but also the needs of our kids. So that sort of grew into knowing that the only thing that really doesn't work is being so set on just one platform, one set of tools, one approach, because ultimately, even as educators, our teachers are also learners, and they're adapting as they work. And so therefore, some of them were familiar with certain tools before, a remote learning need happened, and therefore that's what they gravitated towards. And that was great, because they were able to take the lead within their departments, within their small groups, and sort of facilitate those conversations within their buildings. So it really became, let's move away from a one consolidated approach, which oftentimes, folks would like to think is best, especially for big districts, but we've really had to let go a little bit of that tendency and let the options open up, and we've seen a lot more success across all of our schools with that approach.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that. And something else that I think you were starting to get at and hinting at, and I think something that that resonated with one of the other, as I was monitoring the chat box, is can you talk about, are there any approaches to helping both the main classroom or content teachers collaborate with the ESL or EL specialists that you would recommend?
Yeah, and that collaboration piece has, as it was in face-to-face and school-based learning, it still is a challenge, even within our remote learning, where before it was difficult to find scheduled times during the school day in the building where you could get together with your English learner focused teacher and your content teacher. That still is the case now, but the difference is it's just the platforms themselves make it a little more difficult to have a personal collaborative experience is sort of what I've picked up on. So I think the precedent is still there, and our teachers have, gone out of their way to schedule their own, synchronous meetings to talk about certain students and really kind of track progress as much as possible across departments, within their departments. Every building really has kind of taken their own approach to facilitating those ongoing, professional learning communities. But some of the challenges are still there that we're familiar, scheduling. I mean, our teachers are doing different things all throughout the workday, sometimes doing the synchronous, sometimes, working on lessons, sometimes checking in individually with our students. So it has proven important, especially, at the high school level. I think where, tracking for progress within these classes has really been important for our seniors and just kind of keeping up with all the different needs there. So it's just been a building by building sort of approach, and our teachers have really responded as best as they can, just given the different circumstances.
Yeah. So you bring up a valid point, Ruben, that, this collaboration can often be challenging even under a normal circumstance. I would like to invite Jennifer or Jean to jump in if you have any thoughts around this collaboration between teachers and the ESL or EL specialists, if you have anything to add to that.
Hi, this is Jennifer. We do have some EL staff in our district who they're doing almost private Zoom meetings with the classroom teachers to help modify the curriculum that we were given to use as a district, because they know that the needs of their EL students are great, and so they want to Zoom with them, kind of like a planning period, I guess we could say, just so that they make sure that the students understand the district framework or curriculum that was sent out. It's very important to our staff that all of their students have the access to the curriculum, that they understand what they're supposed to be doing. And we have had some problems in the beginning with some students doing the assignment completely the wrong way because the parents couldn't help them. The students didn't understand what to do, and so that's when they decided they wanted to Zoom and plan with those classroom teachers one-on-one, just to make sure that the students and the parents both can understand the assignment and complete it at home.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. So I want to follow up. Actually, Jennifer, I have a question for you. I would like to hear a little bit more about, can you describe what your district is doing to attend to English language development in this current remote learning environment?
Absolutely. So we've got some really great instructional specialists in our district who've created district-wide frameworks for K through 5, and which means that every K through 5 teacher is following the same framework, same assignments, same everything. That way each teacher is not trying to come up with their own assignments and, kind of get rid of the inequities if one teacher gives a whole lot but another teacher doesn't give hardly anything. So what we've done is we've taken that district framework and we've translated it so that all of our parents and students can have access to the curriculum. And from there, then we are doing, I'm sorry, I keep hearing a beep. So what we're doing is we've got newcomers. Our EL teachers are Zooming and doing newcomer lessons every single day of the week. And what they're doing is they are scaffolding and modifying the district framework for our K through 5 newcomers. And then they're meeting twice a week with their non-newcomers. And they are doing the same thing. They're scaffolding and they are modifying. What's very important to keep in mind is that we want to make sure that we keep it on grade level, because those are the grade level expectations and the objectives and the standards that need to be followed, but we're scaffolding and modifying those as appropriate for all of our learners.
So that's interesting, because we were just talking with Ruben a little earlier about the he found that it's the one size fits all doesn't necessarily work, and it almost sounds like what I'm hearing that you all are doing is maybe almost like an adaptation of that, of making sure everybody has the same kinds of assignments and expectations, but then how do you work to scaffold those across the different classrooms, and maybe you can help see if I'm on the right track with that interpretation.
Yeah, you're correct. So, for example, on our district framework, every week there's a comprehension story. So let's say that for third grade, the comprehension passage was a story called How the Bat Got Wings, which is a fable. And so on Mondays, when our EL teachers are Zooming with their newcomers, they might build background. What is a bat? Let's complete a KWL chart about bats. What do bats look like? Because, you know, it's pointless for you to story about bats if you don't know what a bat is. And so, and since all students throughout the district are completing the same assignments, then we have all third graders join one Zoom session, or all fourth graders join one Zoom session. So that way, the Zoom session is specifically modified for that grade level, as well as the students' English language ability. And so Monday might be a building background lesson, you know, just so the student has background on what the story they're reading about is. On Tuesday, they might introduce story vocabulary. So we use a program called Elevation, and Elevation has a lot of activities and scaffolds inside the platform. And so they might do something like a 360-degree words, move it, make it, mean it. So we've taken the story words, maybe mammal or bird or wings, and we're going to, on our Zoom session, we're going to make, what's the word I'm looking for? We're going to, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. We're going to act out these words so that all students understand the meaning of the words. And then on Wednesday, maybe we're going to monitor the comprehension, do an I read, we read, or we're going to clarify input using planned discussion prompts so that we know what we're going to ask our students ahead of time. But once again, we're going to adapt that to our EL students' levels. On Thursday, maybe we're going to give them an opportunity to write using the actions for the vocabulary words. And once again, use some elevation strategies throughout that. And then on Friday, they would assess their language and learning. So maybe that means they would complete their KWL chart, or they would do a verbal exit ticket, or they would do one of the other activities that's listed on our framework. So really what was most important for us was that all students are doing the same assignments, all students are having the same opportunities for learning, but we're just going to scaffold that so that everyone can complete the assignment and can learn from what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so Jennifer, so I have a follow-up question, and I would also love to hear from the other panels to jump in as well. But so, you know, you're talking about working through Zoom and these different activities. So is that the main vehicle for providing EL students feedback on their completed work? And I know for a lot of EL students, there's a concern about access to online instruction. And so I don't know in what ways you've had to adapt that. But I would love to hear from you on that, and also I would love to hear from Jean and Ruben as well, ways in which they're hearing from that feedback, and if and how you know, access to this online instruction, you all have had to think about that.
Yeah, so Zoom and Canvas are our big two platforms where we're doing our virtual learning. But since we are using a district-wide framework and everyone's doing the same assignments, we've printed packets. And we have the packets available at every Walmart in our town. And so it's kind of like when you go and pick up the school supply list from Walmart for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we've got our virtual learning packets at Walmart organized the same way. So the parent can walk into Walmart, grab the learning packet, take it home, and complete it. So even if they don't have access to Zoom, or, you know, they don't have a device to use, they can still complete the assignments that have been given. It's just not in a virtual platform. And I know for the first several weeks that we went virtual, we ran out of packets at Walmart because we had so many people coming in to get them, which is great news.
Great. Jean or Ruben, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, we also, when, I'm Jean from Broken Arrow, and when we did, some parents, even though they have internet at home and they have the computer at home, some parents just like the paper pencil. And they're used to that. They like to be able to check something off the list that it's completed. They like to see everything, even if they jump online and do some of the activities online, they like to have that paper pencil. So it gives that parent the option of both. And just like if a parent didn't have a computer at home, we had enough computers within our district to check one out to them. So if they wanted a computer, we could check it out to them as well. So it gave the parents an opportunity to get either or online or paper pencil for their child.
Right.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit here as well, and maybe just as a clarification point to some of what I heard. So I agree as well, and I agree as well that having multiple ways to access, for example, something like a district provided a packet is great, because that's exactly what we're doing as well. So we're on the same page here with my district, where we are providing a central, provided packet of resources that the students are all accessing for that equity piece. So they're all given the same type of work, but it's like it was mentioned, we know that some of our students won't be able to access it digitally. We know that some will prefer the paper packet, and we know that, so on and so forth, that opening for so much variety is gonna happen. So I think that's really more what I wanted to clarify, is we wanted to have sort of a compromise where we're making, as a district, these provided learning targets and packets that the students and parents can rely on to be there, and the teachers can rely on to use, so we have some standardization. But the moment that we allowed our teachers to use it and adapt it themselves with the support of our English learner, teachers helping with particular students, that's really where we started seeing the best outcome. And I really love that idea of providing them in different spaces. We also experimented with, and I believe it's still ongoing, providing packets during the same time the students pick up lunches at the schools as well. Just, the places where it's most convenient for our parents and our kids to have that access is 100%. Because while it's been surprising to note that a lot of our students have found that digital access, where at first we were worried that would be a bigger issue, I don't have a set percentage, but it has been great to see that a lot of our kids have found their way to the digital platforms more readily than perhaps at first we thought. So we are still able to do the paper packets for those who just do not have the access, but it's been great that a lot of our parents and kids have really embraced this new expectation and really ran with it as best as they can.
Yeah, great. I want to, so there's so much more I could go on about this, because this is really great. I like hearing all this, like, the Walmart pickup or the school lunch pickup. Jean, I'd like to ask you, going on a different track a little bit, can you talk a little bit more around, family communication, and what ways have you all been using students' home languages for learning or communicating with parents, and have you had to change your strategies under this remote learning environment?
Yeah, so we are still using our teachers and our EL assistants to communicate. And so we had a program called Worldwide, and so we used that. And then we also utilized language lines. So both of those are a way to communicate with our families. But we did change a little bit and added talking points during distance learning. And I think we'll probably continue to use talking points, because it's an easy way to communicate back and forth with our parents. And so a lot of our teachers will pick up the phone and call. Some will even text, email. We've even done a few home visits. If we can't get a hold of any families at all, we'll send our resource specialist out to check on them, make sure that they're doing okay, or to see if they need anything. So we're kind of made a few changes in that, but mainly just making sure that we're checking up with them. And of course, we're holding Zoom sessions with our EL kids. And so if they don't get on, or we don't see them, then we'll do some checks. We've asked our teachers in elementary to be able to check with the kids daily, and then at our secondary sites to make sure that we have a contact with them at least weekly. But most of the time they have more, because we utilize Canvas.
Yeah, great. So I want to do a quick time check, and one question I do want to make sure all the panelists answer, and maybe Jean, you could go first, is just, can you just tell us, like, what do you feel have been your district and schools' biggest challenges addressing EL learning needs in this distance environment, and what are you all trying to do to meet these challenges?
Well, I think one of our biggest challenges was getting the internet. I think the computers, we're fortunate that our 6th through 12th grade is already one-on-one, and then we had enough in the elementary that we could give out a computer to each child within the first week that we went distance learning. By the Friday after spring break, we already knew who didn't have a computer or who didn't have a hotspot. We have right at 20,000 students, and we got responses back from all of them. Teachers called, or we sent a mass email, and if they didn't answer, then we started calling. And by Friday of the end of the week, we knew that information, which was very helpful. But it was the hotspots that became the issue because, you know, some of our states went on distance learning before Oklahoma, and so they were buying up the hotspots, and so it was hard to get a hold of those. So we were put on back order, which we did finally receive them in, which will help for our summer school program. But I think that was one of our biggest challenges in our district as far as instruction. And then two, just getting packets made and out to parents and having the organization of all the different departments. But I think our instructional team, we work really well together. So everybody just took a part, and some people, maybe our assessment coordinator, that now that we don't have assessment, she jumped in and helped with a lot of other areas. And so I think that really helped because we know that it's not just about the learning, but we did a lot of mental health activities as well.
Right. So we're running a little short on time, but, you know, maybe Jennifer and Ruben, you guys could spend maybe about, you know, 30 seconds each telling us about some of your biggest challenges in terms of this new distance learning environment.
Yeah, I can jump.
I'll go real quick. Go ahead, Ruben.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, Jennifer. No, I'll just say quickly, I think the biggest challenge that has come to light is the need to track English language development progress in our kids. Because more than anything, what we're able to do now is give them, you know, assignments and instruction and, you know, that presence of an educational platform being there, but we can't replicate the ability yet that we found of a teacher being able to gauge that progress continually and really trying to find a system that works best to help track that so we know our kids are making gains, because in their home environment, aside from the time they spend doing the, you know, the work, the instruction they're provided, they're not getting that exposure as much as they would to practicing that English language. So replicating that is the big challenge I think we're seeing, and we're hoping to find new ways to continue working to ameliorate that.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Okay, so I've just got three concerns that I don't think that have been mentioned already. The first one was that with most of our parents working or not being able to speak English very well themselves, the kids are left at home with an older adult, you know, older generations who might not be able to access or help with the technology. And even the lack of English with the older siblings who may not be comfortable doing their own schoolwork, who are now trying to help younger siblings with their schoolwork. So that would be one. The second one would be just getting in front of the kids. You know, so if we are able to get them on a Zoom, we can't control the learning environment, you know, what's going on in the background, or, you know, are they in an environment that's conducive to learning? And thirdly would be just the interaction is minimal. There's no opportunity for hands-on learning, and most of our students are limited to paper and pencil. If they're able to get on the Zoom, they're limited to paper and pencil if they even have that. And so just getting some of those manipulatives in front of the kids have been the three things that we've noticed that haven't been mentioned already.
Great. Well, I want to thank all the panelists for your thoughts, for your discussion. This has been really informative.